to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been a varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Currently, my daughter and I are coaching one of the best AAU teams in the country. Well, Piston fans, got a lot of news today. We're going to talk about Cade Cunningham and what's going on with him. Some news about Bogey and his relationship with the Pistons. We're going to talk about Sadiq. We're going to get into a lot of things. The trade deadline. So hang on and stay with me, and we're going to get to a lot of things. So first, we're going to start talking about Cade Cunningham. We've all missed him, and he was my favorite thing to watch on the Pistons. And having him out for the year has made it not as much fun to watch, even though we still have some exciting players, and it's not helped us in the win-loss column or on the court. So anyway, I saw a clip of Cade in a gym with Coach Beilein, and he was practicing his shot, and I noticed his follow-through is higher, and it was looking good. And I've talked before on different episodes about how his shot was flat, and that was a major thing that he was supposed to be working on last year, but he came back into the season and his shot was still flat, and his consistency on his three-point shot has not been there, and so that's been a big problem. So I was listening to a podcast with some guys I really respect, and they were doing a redraft of the 2021 draft, and they had Mobley rated first, which I can see that. I'm not, I know some Piston fans might resent that. And I can say this: I think that he's a fantastic player. I still love Cade, but he, now with the team that he's on, he has Garland and Davion Mitchell, and they hoist up a lot of shots, those guards. And so I think he's, might not. He's still playing great, and he's averaging a lot of points, and he's really efficient, and his defense is phenomenal. But anyway, they still had Cade, the two different guys. One had Cade rated second, and one had Cade rated third. And, the thing that's holding him back from being rated first is his three-point shot. So if he does use this time, and he has lots of time between now and the start of next season to get his arc up, get his follow-through. I mean, you have to retrain. It's easier said than done to reconstruct your shot. When people have muscle memory of shooting thousands of shots, their arm and they look at their basket and their arm goes right to the same place. But Coach Beilein, when I touched base with him, he said that this is a great time for Cade to make corrections, and I think that he's doing that. And so I'm real optimistic that he's going to be make a huge leap next year, and that he's going to have a consistent three-point shot. I mean, there's no guarantees, but I'm just excited for that. We just sometimes forget, we look at how bad we're struggling, and we think about that. The next, we're going to talk about Bogey, and so congrats to Bogey. A while back, he scored his 10,000th career NBA point, and he started in the league a little bit later. But, Bogey he had a great game the other night, even though we got beat. He's just been phenomenal overall for the year. He's slumped just a little bit lately. But anyway, so Bogey on Hoops Hype, there was some quotes from him saying, I'm just going to read it to you, so it's right from him. Having conversations with the club and Troy and the owners, they assured me that we were going to be great next year. So, what does that mean by great? They also sold him on the fact when he signed that extension that we were trying to win, and we're not winning. So I'm not sure that he, how much he could believe in that. So anyway, he then said, we have a lot of cap space to sign great players. And I agree with him. We have different avenues where we can really improve. Not sure there's a lot of great players out on the market, though. That's the only conundrum. But we're going to have a high pick again, which is exciting. We're going to get a great asset there and something that's going to really improve our team. And hopefully it's Victor or Scoot. But again, there's Miller from Alabama that I love, and Amon Thompson. And so there's, some great players out there, and we should be able to get one if we, unless we start winning a lot of games. But he said we're going to have a high pick, and so that's going to help us a lot. We have a great young group of guys. When Cade went down, that kind of hurt us big time. And we were thinking that maybe we'd be fighting for a play-in tournament, but when he went down, he's our main guy. And all their offensive strategies, he said, were connected to Cade. And so when he went down, it really affected the season, and we've had a lot of ups and downs without him. And so that's coming from him. So who knows? People, speculated with, Bogey's one of the hottest names on the trade market. Still, we're a week away, from the trade deadline, and nothing's happened. Not with any of the 30 teams. So it's mind blowing, and maybe things can all of a sudden start fast. I'm sure that most deals are going to get done on the last day. But it sounds like we do really want to keep Bogey, and that we really do want to try to win next year. And he will help us win, and I do love watching him play. But as I've said countless times on this podcast, that he's going to be 34 in April, and so we got 2 years more on his contract, which I think he'll still be a good player. But that's about when we're really going to start turning the corner. So I'm not sure he's going to be along, how good he's going to be when, a lot of people are playing later. Tom Brady's 45. LeBron is, 38 years old and averaging 30 points a game, shooting 50% and getting lots of rebounds and assists. So don't know what's happened, but it is the truth. Our defense has been what's really held us back. And I saw where there was an analytic that rated defense, which is hard to do. It's really hard to quantify defense, but it rates the worst defender of all the forwards in the NBA is Bojan, and the third worst is Sadiq. So we can talk just for a second about Sadiq, and he is, he's up on the trade market, and there's rumors that maybe the Knicks want him, and there's people that say we would get a player from them and maybe get our first round draft pick back. So we have this first round draft pick, and we traded to Houston a long time ago, but it has all these protections to it. So it's protected through the 16th this year, and then in the next year it's protected through 18. Following 2025, it's a top 13 protection, and 26 is top 11 protection. And by 2027, if it hasn't conveyed, they get a second round pick. So the problem with this trade that we made was we are not allowed to make any trades of first round draft picks because we don't know when the trade's going to convey. So you cannot trade first round draft picks 2 years in a row. There's an NBA rule because the owner that was crazy back a long time ago, he traded all of his first round draft picks, and so now they don't allow you to trade 2 first round picks in a row. So anyway, we can't use that in a package to make a deal. So that kind of handcuffs us a little bit. Positive thing that happened is we just did get a $5.27 million disabled player exemption for Cade. That doesn't mean we get to add just any other player. We would have to drop a player from our roster. But I'm not sure how that would tie in to the trade deadline. It possibly could. We do have that, $5 more million to work with. But I don't think, I'm not sure that that's going to be anything significant for us. So the thing is, there's free agency and there's players that we could trade for. But, even if we traded, I talked about OG Anunoby that plays for Toronto. And Toronto is the big mystery. Are they going to sell, or are they going to buy, or are they going to just stand pat? And a lot of people in the NBA thinks that they hold the key to a big part of the trade deadline. But, if we do sign him, then in a couple of years, he's going to require a large amount of money, just the same as Kuzma. So I said Kuzma was the type of player that we might want in free agency, but now there's speculation because the Wizards just traded Rui Hachimura to the Lakers, that they have every intention of keeping Kuzma, which is he's going to be a free agent and he's not going to opt in to an extension. So, but there must be some talks behind the scenes where they've discussed and they've said that with Kuzma in his camp. So he's probably not going to be available anyway, but it probably will cost a lot of money because everybody wants those big wings that can score, and especially if they can play some defense. But the beauty of getting that high pick again this year, and I will stress again, I am all in on getting this high pick, the highest. I want 14% chance to get Victor or Scoot. or one of those top four guys that I mentioned, Miller, or the other guy, that one of the Thompson twins. So, but they when you get those players, they're great players, and you really have control of them for like 8 years. In the first 4 years, they're really cheap. The top pick gets Cade, I think, got 10 million his as the number one pick in the draft, and then it goes down every pick after that. So, um, like I said, we could try to sign a free agent, but we're better off this 1 year and then going after it and going all in on winning next year, and hopefully get it along with that draft pick, along with a healthy Cade, along with all the pieces we've got. We have got a chance to evaluate players. Ivey's getting better. It was really cool to see the chemistry between Ivey and Duren. I mean, I think that half of Duren's dunks are assisted by Ivey, and he's been inconsistent. He's had really good games and really good spurts. I mean, he had that game where he started out, scored the first 12, I think it was against the Nets. He scored the first 12 points. He outscored the Nets 12-11 in the first 4 minutes or whatever of that game. He's had some real good spurts. He's really scattered on defense. He kind of overplays his man and is just kind of like running around there, kind of out of control a little bit defensively. So he does need to calm down and lock in and really take pride in his defense. I will say this: I am all for getting it, and I'm jumping all over today, and I'm going to be doing that today. I can just tell you that. But I do believe that we are by the end of this year that we should get a different coach. Nate Oates, that's the coach at Alabama, is phenomenal. I threw out there Becky Hammond, um, and so I think she would be also a great pick. And the assistant coach from the Knicks, I said he would be a great pick. But Nate Oates would be a great coach. I listened to him when he was a high school coach, like 10 or 15 years ago, and I was just blown away that a high school coach could run such efficient practices, and so just had you could just tell that um, he was aware of every little thing that went on, and he was so smart and quick. And then, so anyway, one of his players got recruited by Buffalo, and they signed with Buffalo, and then he got brought in along with this player to be an assistant coach to Bobby Hurley. Bobby Hurley got a bigger college job, and Nate Oates went there. Now Nate Oates is at Alabama, and they're really highly ranked, and he's turned that program around. And he would be a great coach in the NBA too. I think that he'll get a chance. So, but when we talk about the Piston defense and how terrible the Piston defense is, and I do think that getting a new coach could certainly impact how we play defensively. I think we do need that. And we are the second worst defense. But I'm going to tell you, the worst defense is the San Antonio Spurs. And they have arguably the greatest coach in NBA history. And if he's not the greatest, he's in the top three, Coach Popovich. And, his team plays worse defense than the Pistons. I mean, it's close. And then even the Warriors, Steve Kerr is highly regarded and considered one of the top 10 coaches probably in NBA history. And their defense is terrible. So it's not just on the coach. It does have a lot to do with the players that you have. I do think that we are in need of getting a coach who has a better system and maybe a better voice at changing that. But yeah, I'm excited about the Duren and Ivey combination. They're going to play in the game before the All-Star game, the Rising Stars game. So they both got selected for that. So it's going to be fun to watch them play in that. Scoot Henderson's going to play in that. So if I were Piston fans, I would be keeping my eye on Scoot in that game and seeing what it looks like, and because it might be a player that we get. They honored Bob Lanier the other day, and I've talked about him a little bit. I watched him play down at Cobo, and I loved watching him play. He had a silk smooth shot and just soft as can be. He had a beautiful hook shot, old fashioned, kind of like Kareem's. I do believe if they would have had the 3-point shot back then, which they didn't, he would have been terrific. But he was this big, huge mountain of a man. He was 6'11", 7 foot, and he was pretty heavy, but he just had, like I said, that feather touch. Chris Ford also passed away, who was a Piston that I watched play, and he was, a little trivia, he was the first NBA player ever to make a 3-point shot in an NBA game. So he ended up going on and getting traded to the Celtics and was on some championship teams there, coached the Celtics to some championships, but he was a former Piston that was, cool to watch. So anyway, we have a lot of people that are really anxious. The Bucks game was a nightmare. They came out 22-6 in less than 4 minutes. They were ahead 28-8 in 5 minutes into the game. Giannis had 20 points 8 minutes into the game. And we gave the end of the first quarter. It was 49-24, and the record for the most points in the first quarter was 51. So it was bad, and our defense was terrible, and a lot of people were really upset about that game. The funny thing is, after that game, we bounced back and we beat the Nets. The Nets were playing without, obviously Durant, and they didn't have Seth Curry, and then they're a terrible defensive team. The guys that they have, Durant's not bad on defense, but they have Ben Simmons, and he played in the first half. He played 20 minutes and had 7 assists, and then he got hurt, so he didn't play the rest of the game, and we were able to win that game, and we had a lot of guys play quite well. So then I know that a lot of people are really upset after we lost to Houston, and I understand. Houston, they played without their top 3 players. Jalen Green averages 22 points, and Kevin Porter Jr. averages 19 points and 5.6 assists. He's their leader. And Sengun, that's a second-year player. He averages 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 3.6 assists. He's a really fabulous player, and he has lots of really good post moves, and they're starting to run their offense through him. So his stats are even way higher the last 20 games. He's gotten to play more, and his usage rate has gone way up. The thing about them, and this is Tankathon, I don't know, they held those guys out. Just the irony, they hold out their top 3 players, and they've played 50 games. Green's played in 48 games, so he's only missed one other game besides the Piston game, and Kevin Porter has played in 40 games, so he must have had some minor injury before, but he's still, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he just plays the next game. And Sengun, he's played in 45 of their 50 games, and one of those games that he missed was against the Pistons. So I think they were intentionally tanking. Well, what that does is that fires up your team, and that that was a team that we should have beat for sure. We were playing at home. They had their 3 best players out, but here we are. We have only 2 post players that we're playing, and we realized Isaiah Stewart. Again, he is only 6'8" and he can't jump. So the same problems, we got destroyed in the paint. 70 points in the paint we gave up to the Rockets, and they're not that great. And again, they were missing their center and their 2 leading scorers, but we just didn't have a post presence at all. Duren, who's our best rebounder, he got in foul trouble, so he only played 24 minutes, and Stu only played 24 minutes. So we only had 48 minutes total of an actual center. And again, I will say this: we're realizing that Beef Stew is going to be a 4 going forward, and he doesn't play them together. And early in the year, we were getting killed in the paint because we weren't, we didn't have 2 post players in there, and we started doing better and not getting killed in the paint as bad when we played Stewart and Duren together. So I don't know, Bagley's out, and so that's our other post player, and the mystery is why we don't play Noel at least 10 minutes a game or something to get us some rebounding and some interior defense. I really feel strongly that even if we have Duren and Bagley and Stu next year going into the year, we have to get, he doesn't have to be great, but we have to get a big guy, because it just seems big guys do get injured even more than other players. And so we're stuck having, not, no good post players, and not even any post players. I think that helped our tanking last year, that we had no post players last year. We had games where Stu was the only post player. So we're out there in the game against the Rockets, and we didn't even have Duren. There were parts of the game where we didn't have Duren or Stu on the court, or Noel. And so we had no center on the court. And so everybody's upset that, they out-rebounded us. They killed us on the offensive boards. Yes, they did. but we didn't even have one center out there. And on top of that, Sadiq and Bogey, who are two of our best 3-point shooters, they were 2 for 13 on threes. So um, Sadiq was 4 for 11 from the floor and 1 for 7 on threes, and he was a team worst, -10. Bogey um, was 6 for 17 and 1 for 6 on threes, 5 for 6 on free throws, and he was a -5. Duren he had 5 fouls, so he only played 24 minutes. He was 3 for 4, but only got 5 rebounds, and 9 points. Burks played 27 minutes, and they've started him the last 3 games, and he scored where is it? He scored 21 points, and so he's been hot. So he's been really hot. He was 6 for 12 and 6 for 11 on threes, even though we lost the game. Ivey had 16 points, 4 for 9 shooting, which is real efficient, and 16 points is really good for only taking 9 shots and 7 rebounds and 5 assists. But he did have 6 turnovers. So Livers has been playing. So we're trying to play a lot of guys. Hami was lights out again. Hami has been shooting 70% like the last 15 games. And I will say this about Sadiq. He has, had an up and down year, which he has in most of his career. He's had some ups and downs. But the last 26 games, he has shot 40% on threes, but he was way down to 30. So he's on 6 attempts, so it's significant attempts, and he's been shooting 40%, which is great. The last 8 games, he's shot 44% and on 7 attempts. So he's coming back there. Like I said, there's that trade. There's a lot of trade talk around him picking up. Whether they make a trade or not, we'll just have to wait and see. We just need to get some better defenders and see where that takes us. So I said the Wizards game that was scheduled for tonight. This is Wednesday. So the Pistons are stuck in Dallas. They had ice storm down in Dallas, and so I know a lot of the podcasters and the beat writers and things were complaining about the bad weather. They get to go to Dallas and think they're going to have warm weather, and they get cold and ice, and so that they couldn't fly out of there. So the NBA has postponed that game. There's no scheduled makeup, so the Pistons are not going to be playing tonight. And so we'll just have to wait and see when they're going to make up that game. The Pistons do have, we looked at the remaining schedule, and of the teams that are in the Wemby Derby, the Rockets, the Magic have the 7th toughest schedule, and the Rockets have the 4th toughest schedule. So those teams have a good chance of losing games, but the Magic are looking really good, and they have been winning, and they're going to win some games that a lot of people shouldn't think they would. But the Spurs have the 24th hardest schedule, and the Hornets have the 25th, and the Pistons have the 28th. So we have the 3rd easiest schedule. You go backwards, there's 30 teams, and if you have the 28th hardest schedule, that means you have the 3rd easiest schedule. So anyway, we'll see, and I think that we have seen improvements. Ivey's mid-range game has improved. We've seen Stu put the ball on the floor and take it to the basket, and he's not great at it yet, but you see that there's hope there. And again, we're doing. We got the trade deadline coming up. It just is going to be fascinating to see what happens in the next week if we do make any trades. But I want to thank you all for listening, and I want to thank my wife Kelly for helping me edit this. And I want you to do something nice for someone today, even if it's just a kind word that you say or something word of encouraging. Give somebody a call that you think, if you call your grandma or grandpa up and say hi to them and make their day, or do something extra to help somebody today. But thank you again for listening. Go Pistons, and see you next time.